the Nike Alphafly. In this particular pair, I've now put in 200 plus miles, and we answer the question, is the shoe still race worthy? Let's talk about it. So before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're already subscribed and watching this content. Thanks so much, love you guys a lot. I will put the specs for the Alphafly up here, and I'll give you kind of a brief history of my experience with the Alphafly shoe as a racing shoe in general, and then we'll just kind of talk about this pair in specific. Just kind of going down memory lane here as well. So if we want to go down memory lane in this particular case, we should probably talk about the first rendition of the Alphafly that most people know came out in like mid to late 2020. When it was first announced, it was the most ridiculous looking shoe I've ever seen on the market. And it was, I don't know, there was a lot of hype and a lot of hope for this shoe as well because of, you know, the amount of ZoomX that was thrown on here, this Air Zoom Pocket technology that was going to be big for the Tokyo Olympics when they were, like, discussing it. And I know that, I guess when the shoe was, like, announced, that's roughly when they postponed the Olympics for the next year, and then Nike decided to keep this model. Other companies were deciding to go into the carbon plate direction and started catching up, per se, to Nike's carbon plate road race technology in that case. So that's where we kind of end up here with the Alphafly. But in my history of this shoe, yes, I did buy this in pretty late 2020. And this was a shoe that I actually really ended up enjoying. This particular model in like early 2021 when like the Tempo Next Percent was also a thing. And then I thought, hey, if I can enjoy the Tempo Next Percent, I'm going to enjoy running in this shoe as well. And now there were some variations because of like, you know, the offset and the stack height between both shoes that made it a bit tricky transitioning from one into the other, but there was a significant difference between like riding in the Tempo Next Percent, which had this like thud but this awesome like push off the ground because of its toe balance, versus like the Alphafly having more of this neutral 4mm offset, which again in the specs is a significant difference between the shoe and allows for a little bit of more, I would say, midfoot to kind of like this Air Zoom Pocket carbon plate roll in the shoe. So I did win a few races in Florida when I was racing in 2021. I used it for the Chicago Triathlon, which I will discuss kind of coming up because it is a few days from now as I am making this video. And yeah, since then I've not retired to this particular model despite it having over 250 plus miles and having some insane looking wear, as you can probably see. But yeah, that kind of rolls us into mid to late 2021 when I figured, hey, I enjoyed this Alphafly. Let's get another pair of the Alphafly, a 2021 model with some variations, and essentially use it for the Chicago Marathon. So at this point in time, when using it for the Chicago Marathon and putting it through the grit and whatever, I already noticed that there's a lot of differences between both shoes. And I've made a video comparing both models from like the 2020 version versus the 2021 model with like different things like the heel collar, it was a lot softer, the upper felt a lot more malleable, and the ride was slightly different. And over time, the difference between the ride of both shoes started to vary quite tremendously, and that's going to be a talking point for one of the major cons of this shoe as we get into it. So I think without further ado, we should probably get into it. I think the last thing we'll mention is like shortly after the Chicago Marathon, I did run a 3:27 in this shoe, which I'm not happy with at all, despite some people will say, oh, you ran sub 3:30, that's like amazing. But like, I hold myself to a different standard than like the average runner per se, and not like in a narcissistic way. It's just I know that if I'm focusing on running a sub 3 marathon, that's the goal. Anything short of that, every single minute is just like more and more grueling towards the personal goals I'm trying to achieve here. So as we get into it, like this particular model with 200 plus miles, this is what the bottom of the shoes look like in terms of their wear and tear, and including the outsole style wear. So that's the left foot, as you can see, that's the right foot. And then for this particular shoe, we should probably also do a side view of our Air Zoom pods in addition to the ZoomX foam for both shoes. And this is the left foot in terms of the Air Zoom pod wear and the ZoomX. So I think we can start probably with the right foot, as you can probably guess. So as you can see, we are wearing into this pod some more, into the point where it is starting to kind of break in through the rubbery area there. So as we can tell from the left foot, this was sort of part of my old striking style before my peroneal stress fracture injury. You can see that the wear is occurring where the rubber is being pulled into the middle of the shoe. So that can tell you from the style of run, or whether it's how my foot was landing, that whenever I would strike the ground, there would be this bit of slide inward before I would kick off the shoe and kind of, you know, go in that general direction. So we can see there's a little bit of that, like, I guess it's, I'm going to say it's a bit of like fuzz, maybe a bit of, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It's kind of frizzling off the rubber on the front area of this shoe, and that's mostly because, again, the shoe might be coming down and losing some slight grip, whether it's like gravel, whether it's just my style is very aggressive into the ground like that. There's a couple of things to probably watch out for that in this particular case, and overall, it's wearing out the shoe in areas that I'm not really fond of it wearing, and it's kind of causing some issues as I'm moving forward with this shoe. Now, a good pro about this shoe right now is that the upper has, for the most part, not torn in any sort of places, or doesn't appear to be tearing. I know, like in this forefoot area with this extra toe guard reinforcement, it's still holding itself pretty well. It is kind of gooey in a sense, but again, no visible wear in this shoe as opposed to the Alphafly that I used last year that I may still or not really race in, where we just got holes everywhere in this upper, and it's hard to use the shoe on a daily basis, or even for another race for like old time's sake, when there's this much damage on the shoe in the first place. So that's kind of a tricky thing to consider. So the reason we make this video, I know that the Alphafly 2 is out on the market, and it's like already almost immediately sold out everywhere. And I've seen reviews of it that it doesn't have the same like spirit. It doesn't have the same nostalgia that the Alphafly has with this like spring in the forefoot area. But again, to each their own. I'm definitely going to get the shoe and kind of test it out myself. Once again, like obtain a copy of it. Obtain a pair of that shoe. So, in the grand scheme of things, this should be a shoe I could still race in despite it having 200 plus miles. But the shoe should have also been long retired if that was the case. The reason the shoe is still in my lineup and not retired, and I haven't raced in it very much, is that the Alphafly Next% 2, in a way, has still overcome the Alphafly as a better racing shoe, in my opinion, at this point in time with the way this particular model was built out. And the other thing to consider here is that because the Alphafly, after the Chicago Marathon, I did sustain that injury with like a stress fracture or stress reaction in my right peroneal tendon fibula area. It's been kind of tricky getting back into the shoe and not experiencing the exact same symptoms on the left side of my body, or in the left fibula area as well. So the spring that I was looking for in the shoe is still kind of there, despite being 200 plus miles, but the stability and the stiffness in the shoe that I'm experiencing now has not been very good. So like, it is unusually stiff right now in the shoe, and I don't know if that's because of it's a combination of like salt in the shoe that's just kind of toughening it up, and maybe I should just throw this into the wash for like a day or so and just get it cleaned up and see what happens. Whether just the wear on the bottoms is no longer providing the spring, or it's not assisting in the spring as it should be, as it did in the past. I can't pinpoint what's going on with this particular Alphafly, but it's bad enough where I've gone back into the Next% to the Vaporfly version, and I've actually been enjoying the Vaporfly a lot more, almost kind of in a nostalgic way to how I was racing in 2019 with the original Vaporfly, and I was just doing a bang-up job running and racing in that particular pair, despite the ankle soreness it was developing in the first variation. But I digress. So at this point in time, there's still a few more races I can do in this Alphafly if I like give it a wash and give it a test and see maybe if it's a me problem as to why this shoe is not cooperating, versus maybe like the shoe itself just needs to get kind of run down, get some salt out of it, and then it would feel a lot less stiff. There's just issues with it that I'm trying to resolve ultimately, and it's too soon to try to have a redemption arc for this shoe for the Chicago Triathlon. Maybe it'll work for my Crystal Lake half marathon that's coming up like a week after the Chicago Triathlon. Maybe it'll work for the Fox River or Fox Valley 20 miler. I don't know. But at this particular point in time, the shoe is just, yes, it's 200 plus miles. It's reaching its like retirement point, but there is still some oomph in the shoe that can be delivered, but I can't deliver it because it's just not comfortable anymore. So I'm trying to, work around with it and see what I can fix to give this shoe its last hurrah before I officially retire it. Same goes for, my first pair of Alphaflys. Like, despite the wear and tear on this right foot when my running stride was pretty terrible still, I can probably do like one last race in this shoe before it's like done and it has to get shelved, or if somebody wants to buy it and try to fix it, by all means, because that's the thing I've been doing, and people are buying my old running shoes for some reason. So by all means, like, we'll continue that model if it satisfies you. So yeah, I guess we're gonna leave this video here on my Alphafly thoughts at this point in time. That this particular 2021 model of the Alphafly is just, it doesn't have the same spirit that the 2020 model had, and the Vaporfly Next Percent 2 is still the dominant racing shoe in my shoe lineup. So I'll end the video here. If you have any agreements or disagreements, I know this is a very controversial shoe too, so I expect the comment section to be kind of ridiculous or kind of polarized. We'll see how that plays out, but yeah, I will end the video here. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.